Welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm Kathleen Walter. With us now on the phone is attorney, former Miss America, and a Republican candidate for the 13th congressional district seat in the state of Illinois, Erika Harold. If she wins this seat, she would become the first African-American Republican congresswoman. And Erika, welcome to Newsmax TV.
Thank you so much for having me.
Erika, you've been active in politics for some time. You were the youth director for the Republican primary campaign of Illinois gubernatorial candidate Patrick O'Malley and a delegate to the 2004 Republican National Convention. Talk to us about why you decided to run for Congress.
I decided to run for Congress because I think that my particular background would enable me to be a strong spokesperson and representative for some of the core issues that are affecting voters within the 13th district. As it relates to health care, for example, right now, part of my legal practice focuses on health care, and I think I could talk about some of the problems with the current Health Care Act with a greater deal of specificity. I'm also running because I have a strong emphasis on defending constitutional freedoms, and part of my legal background has also been working to protect religious and not-for-profit organizations on First Amendment issues. And I think right now we need people in Washington who have a strong emphasis on the Constitution and can talk about those constitutional liberties in ways that resonate with the American people.
Erika, can you tell us what separates you from your opponent, incumbent Republican Representative Rodney Davis?
I think that one of the things that separates us is our background in terms of how we focused our service. He's been involved with working with the Republican Party in terms of building the party within the party structure, and I think that my service has been involved more at the grassroots level, identifying issues of importance and then working on those, whether it's at the grassroots level or within the private sector. So I have been involved in preventing youth violence and bullying, working as a national leader on that issue for several years. Also, my legal background, I think, has given me a lot of real-world practical experience on some of the problems facing small businesses as they try to comply with the Health Care Act, and I've also had experience defending religious groups on constitutional issues. So I think that my experience at the grassroots level outside of the party structure and in the private sector working as an attorney, I think, uniquely equipped me to be a strong voice for the 13th District.
Okay, let's get to the issues. As you're aware, the UN today is investigating claims of a chemical attack that killed more than 300 Syrians, allegedly by the Assad regime. It's been reported that an estimated 100,000 people have been killed in the civil war there. Republican Senators John McCain and Lindsey Graham say it's time for the U.S. to take limited military action there. Is that something that you would support?
At this point, I would need a lot more information before supporting a military involvement by the United States. One of the things that I think has happened, especially within the past decade, is that we've been too quick to commit our troops to conflicts where we don't have identifiable military targets. I think the Syrian situation is an obvious tragedy, but I think just involving American troops without really figuring out, is there a specific identifiable military target that we would be able to see whether we're being able to take concrete actions to achieve a positive resolution is something that I couldn't sign on until I knew that we had identified that.
Mm-hmm. Turning to Obamacare now, there's a debate amongst the GOP about how best to reach its ultimate goal of repealing the very unpopular law. Some say that we should delay the legislation by a year. Others, like Senators Mike Lee and Marco Rubio, say we should cut off funding, even if it risks a government shutdown. How, in your view, should the GOP proceed here?
Well, I think it goes without saying that this piece of legislation is causing, I think, economic stagnation among small businesses because it creates incentives for them to not hire because they don't want to be in a position of having to provide insurance that they can't afford. So without a doubt, it's been, I think, harmful for small businesses. What I think should happen is, I know that the House of Representatives has to decide how much money, if any, to appropriate in the upcoming continuing resolution. And because we don't have a lot of information right now from the administration in terms of what parts of the act are going to be implemented, what parts are not, I don't think additional funding should be appropriated for the Health Care Act in the upcoming resolution. And I think what should then happen is this will force the parties to come to the table to talk about what what specifically is going to be implemented in terms of this Health Care Act, and what would the money be appropriated for. I don't think it's appropriate for the president to shut down the government over this, because obviously that will have some really unfortunate consequences. But I think if I was in Congress, I wouldn't feel comfortable appropriating money for an act that I didn't understand exactly what the money was going to be appropriated for.
Now we're getting mixed signals about the state of the U.S. economy and the economic recovery. If elected, what policies would you advocate or push to repeal to get the U.S. economy and job creation going again?
Well, I think there are some measures that can be implemented at the federal level, and things that are more specific to my district in particular. I think at the federal level, the Health Care Act probably is one of the greatest burdens on the American economy, just because of the way it's structured. It creates incentives for small businesses to avoid hiring and to cut people's hours to a part-time basis so that they don't have to comply with the Health Care Act. And I think this creation of perverse incentives hurts the economy. So I think that this Health Care Act does need to be repealed because it is destructive to the economy. In terms of job creation within the 13th District, there are some great initiatives happening with community colleges partnering with some businesses and looking for ways to better equip the graduating workforce to be prepared to apply for jobs within the district. So I think we need to be looking not just at the federal level, but looking to see specifically what we can do with existing resources within our districts to spur job creation.
And getting back to your campaign, you were recently blocked from speaking at Republican Day at the Illinois State Fair. McLean County GOP Chairman John Parrott blasted Illinois Republican Party officials for this. What kind of reaction or pushback has your candidacy received from Illinois Republican Party officials?
I think that those within the political establishment many of them have not wanted me to wage this campaign, but the only rationale that I've been given for that is simply there's an incumbent. They have not really offered any sort of reasoned rationale beyond that. And I think that within our party, because we are a party of ideas and we support the concept of free market competition, and we believe that competition creates best outcomes for everyone, I think that primaries are healthy, especially in this situation where the nomination last time was not decided by voters, but it was decided by party chairmen. And I think that under these circumstances, when we have a debate going on within the Republican Party about the direction of our party, I think that a primary is healthy. And I think that eventually people within the political establishment will see that and hopefully take a position of neutrality and allow both sides to wage the best campaign possible and let the voters decide who prevails. Mm-hmm.
A new Pew Research Center poll shows that a large majority of young Republicans think that the GOP would do better if it nominated more minority and women candidates, but older Republicans aren't so sure. As you know, the GOP fared poorly with minority and women voters last presidential election. How can you make a difference in this area?
Well, I think I come from an unconventional background as an African-American woman and as a young person, and the fact that I'm a former Miss America probably adds intrigue to my candidacy as well. I think that people within our party want the political system to be more open to people who don't necessarily take the traditional political route of just serving in positions and then finally waiting their turn to run for office. I think that younger voters want a more inclusive approach. And I've had some experience with this in terms of working with the party to do outreach to voters who may share our ideals but may not necessarily find themselves within the Republican Party. As we previously discussed, I was the youth coordinator for one of the candidates for governor in Illinois. I also was involved with the RNC's outreach to African American and women voters. And I think this kind of concrete, intentional outreach to voters who may not currently be voting with us is essential if our party is going to grow.
Mm-hmm. Erika, 50 years to the day after Martin Luther King Jr.'s historic I Have a Dream address, the president will stand at the Lincoln Memorial to commemorate the 1963 March on Washington. President Obama is said to idolize MLK. What parallels and differences do you see between these two?
I think that both President Obama and Dr. King are iconic leaders within the African American community, in that they have achieved milestones that inspire young people in particular to believe that they can grow up and be anything that they aspire to be within this country. And it's hard to know exactly whether Dr. King would have agreed with President Obama on certain policies, but I think that both of them represent the concept that within our country that we should always be pushing to have a more inclusive society where people are judged by the content of their character and not by the color of their skin.
All right, Erika, if folks want to learn more about your campaign, where can they go?
They can go to erikaharold.com, and that's Erika with a K.
All right, Erika Harold, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.